This is day 14 of my 30-day challenge that I have given to myself. But it is a challenge connected with optimizingnutrition.com, datadrivenfasting.com, and the pet diet that I am using with my 30-day challenge is leaning heavily on Trim Healthy Mama. Anything I mention in today's video will be linked in the description box so that you won't have to hunt and try to figure things out for yourself. I try to point people to the resources that have helped me. So I have been starting most of my videos, the majority of my videos that I've done thus far, up to day 14 today, starting in the backyard of my daughter and son-in-law's home in Los Angeles. But today, I get to spend the morning with my daughter. So right now, she has run inside for something, and I have just a brief moment to start the video here. I could not start it as normal because I had to help her with Grand Girl and get her ready for being able to be out and about today as well. So let's see. I'm just going to give you my stats that I already took. When I showered and dressed, I was, my Renpho scale weighed me in at 139.2. That is 0.6 of a pound drop. So a little more than half a pound drop from yesterday. And I will put up an image of what my progress has looked like from day one when I started at DFW Airport to come to Los Angeles to now, day 14. And you'll be able to see the points on the 14-day overview. And then, so that was the weight scale this morning. My morning fasting glucose read 90. And that sort of surprised me in one way because I thought maybe my morning fasting glucose would be lower. But on the other hand, I also know that when our body is in the process of losing weight, we can have a little bit higher morning glucose numbers because the liver is releasing the glycogen that has been stored, which is glucose chunked together in pieces, becomes stored fuel called glycogen. So I guess my body is unpacking some of that storage, which would seem reasonable since there was a little more than a half a pound of drop from yesterday to today, and I've been dropping. I'm on my way back to my 1984 wedding weight of 136 pounds, and then that's sort of my goal for this challenge, this 30 days. And then the next 30-day challenge that I think starts sometime in August, I will try to drop just a couple more pounds to give myself, maybe a 4-pound leeway, because the scale can go up and down by, up to 4 pounds a day. It has been my experience. Now, that's not a normal day-to-day shift, but anyway, I want about a 4-pound wiggle room. So the range that I'm shooting for is about 132 to 136. And that's sort of my goal. I'm 5'5", so those are very reasonable weights that I'm shooting for. I'll keep adding to this video as I'm able throughout the day, but I started my day by packing it with protein, even though I wasn't at my hunger trigger number, my glucose trigger. I wasn't at my glucose trigger, which is 83. My morning fasting glucose was 93, but I also know that if I lead with protein, then my glucose is actually likely to drop faster than if I just fast. I wasn't hungry, but I'm pretty sure my daughter's going to take me to some eating establishment where it might be a minefield for me, filled with landmines for me. And if I have laid a good foundation of protein, I'm helping myself out a great deal. So I will put up images of what I started with, which was the protein pancakes or protein crepes that I made earlier in this challenge. And I don't recall exactly which video they were shared in, but the protein crepe recipe will be linked in the video description box. So I think my daughter is about to come back to the car, and I'll just shut this off and add to it later. I don't know the name of the place that we're at, but it's a pretty neat place.
Breakfast by Salt's Cure.
Okay, Breakfast by Salt's Cure. And this is the feast that I get to enjoy today. So there's oat blueberry pancakes and pork sausage and an arugula salad. I'm sure it all has fancier names than I'm giving it right now. A cup of gazpacho and some peppermint tea. Dig in. Jessie in Chelsea, the glucose goddess, would be proud. The veggies went first, the raw veggies, then the protein, and I'm getting ready to finish up another veggie thing, the gazpacho, and then I will have the carbs, the sweets, the dessert kind of thing last. Those are the oat pancakes. And the peppermint tea, that is part of the digestives. That meal, oh my goodness, that meal was so good. It was just so good. The pork sausages, I don't think I've tasted anything that good since I was a child and we were eating our own pigs that my father and his brother raised each year to butcher in the fall for the two families. The arugula salad that I had, that was really good too. It seemed to have a vinaigrette of lemon juice and olive oil and just a touch of fresh garlic. I'm gonna cough here. Excuse me, sorry about that. It's cold. It's going to probably take a few days to clear on out. The funny thing is that restaurant was called Breakfast by Salt's Cure. So the cure of salt, Salt's Cure. And I was thinking, okay, salt does have curative aspects to it. You know, that makes me think I can put up a shot, a picture, an image in this video and let that run for a few minutes about the difference between white, chemically heat-treated table salt and natural mineral salt, be it sea salt or pink salt, pink Himalayan salt, or gray mineral salt. Well, let me think. Real Salt brand is one of the salts I'm thinking of now. That's one of the ones I buy and use. But I also buy pink Himalayan salt from Walmart. Anyway, salt can be very healthy for your cells. And maybe I'm not sure whether I'll put links in about that for you to follow that information. Probably I will, since I mentioned it, and everything I mentioned I seem to have to follow up with links for people to follow and learn for themselves. Am I rambling? Yes. Okay, let's get back to that meal. So I mentioned while I was taking a brief video clip there at the noisy restaurant. It was a tiny little restaurant. I was taking a video, I was mentioning Jessie in Chelsea, the glucose goddess, and food order, because that's one of her big teachings about how to have a healthier glucose outcome with the foods we choose, that we could still choose all kinds of foods, but the order in which we have our foods really affects the outcome of our glucose rise after the body has taken in that food and needs to break it down and put it to good use. I have notes here on my phone I can look at and share the food order information with you. So these are a list of things that she refers to as hacks. And her first one is avoid naked carbs. So that would mean when you're going to have a food source that is carbs, like an apple, that's a simple example, she refers to it as putting clothes on carbs. So you would slow down the glucose absorption of that apple by, first of all, making sure it's a whole fruit, fiber and all. So the fiber helps slow down the glucose. But also she would probably suggest you have maybe a handful of walnuts with that apple. The protein and the fats, especially in the walnuts, would also slow down the glucose absorption of the apple. Another thing you could do is, a lot of people like some peanut butter smeared on their apple, or they like maybe to take some peanut butter and thin it down with some water and then have a kind of a dipping sauce for their apple. I like to have peanut butter and banana together. That's one of my favorite combinations. Now that is, talk about energy dense. That's really energy dense. And if I do too much peanut butter and too many bananas in a row, all at once or days on end, I see the scale tick upward. So you would have your carbs, but you would slow it down by having some protein or fat with it. And by doing that, that means you're not having naked carbs. The other thing she says is, so the overall general order of having foods is start a meal with a veggie starter if you can, an appetizer of veggies of some sort. Then have your protein, then have your carb source, and that carb source, of course, could be a dessert. She says, and add a whole plate of vegetables to all your meals if you can. I would agree with her on that, because vegetables are a great source of vitamins and minerals and just nutrition, a good source of nutrition and fiber. She says, start your day with a savory breakfast instead of a sweet breakfast. So a savory breakfast would be eggs, meat, but it wouldn't be having a cinnamon roll or a bowl of cereal and juice. That would be more of a sweets-based breakfast. So a savory breakfast would include having protein and maybe some complex carbs, maybe some fat, not the traditional cereal and toast that Kellogg's was pushing back in the 50s and 60s. Another of her hacks is only eat whole fruit. Well, I kind of mentioned that up front with the apple. If you want to have a snack between your meals, make it a savory snack instead of a sweet snack. So instead of going to, I'm thinking that going to a coffee shop and having a cup of coffee and some kind of a sweet pastry would not necessarily be your best option. Get another coughing fit in there. She says to try to incorporate vinegar into your eating routine. Example, have a tablespoon of vinegar in a glass of water before your meals. And then after your meals, use your muscles for 10 minutes after your meals. That could be as simple as taking a walk. And then I can verbally point you to her information on this. So I found this list of hacks at her webpage, and there were science references for each of these ideas. If you go to glucose-revolution.com/science. That should get you to Jesse's list of hacks with science references. The reason I'm getting to sit out here in the backyard right now is because my daughter and her daughter are having some mother-daughter time together making snow cones. And I thought, well, maybe if I could slip out here and have some time alone in the backyard, I could also add on to the video and maybe wrap up the video early today so that I'm not doing it around bedtime. but we'll see. I haven't shown any actual blood glucose measurements today, but I have taken them. I told you this morning that before I left the house, my waking glucose was 90, which I said surprised me, but maybe my liver was giving up stored glycogen as I am dropping weight. And then, so even though I had a glucose of 90, I went ahead and I ate those 3 protein crepes because I wanted to sort of protect myself from when I went out to eat with my daughter. I was pretty sure we were gonna be going out to some restaurant that she really enjoys, and I was right. So I had those 3 protein pancakes, and that gave my body a good source of protein and probably helped my glucose not go nuts when I had that indulgent breakfast at the restaurant. Now, the part that would have messed with my glucose the most at the Salt's Cure restaurant is the pancakes. They, it had syrup on them. It was made with oat flour, probably. There were fats in it. I had 3 little dollops of butter that were melting on top when it was served to me. So, obviously the sausage wouldn't have bothered. I don't think that the arugula salad wouldn't have contributed any great rise, but the pancakes definitely would have. And by having the protein crepes ahead of time, I think I served myself really well in keeping my blood glucose from spiking. I did check my glucose at 132. I'm pretty sure we were eating at the restaurant at about 10:30 in the morning. So 10:30 to 11:30, 12:30, 1:30. 3 hours later, my glucose was only up to 112. And now at 5:30 in the afternoon, it's down to 88. I think that's pretty good. I don't think I'm going to eat again today. I have absolutely no hunger, and that was probably a lot of calories, because I don't think they held back at all in the fats in preparing that meal for the customers. So the only reason I could think of eating again today is I have some dessert stored up in the fridge. My daughter brought home a really decadent dessert from her business dinner out last night. And I also still have some stuff that I bought at Whole Foods a couple of days ago. So, and there were some chocolate bars, specialty chocolate bars my daughter brought me as a treat. So I could go kind of nuts if I wanted on sweets, but I think I'm more curious about what tomorrow holds, considering that my only eating episode was all confined before noon today. Then that makes me think of circadian rhythm, and I think I can get a link in for that, educational links in about circadian rhythm and the benefits of eating your meal or meals earlier in the day rather than later. So if no hunger drives me, and because of all the protein I've had today, I don't think I'm going to have any kind of nagging food thoughts about the sweets hanging out there. I can easily, and if I do, I can easily practice what Jen Stevens has taught me through her books. She has 4 of them, and I sort of use those book titles as my self-talk. Her first one was Delay, Don't Deny. So I can just delay the fun foods I want to have, or the decadent foods, or the junk foods, Cheetos come to mind, that I would want to have, but not deny myself. Speaking of not denying myself, I had to stop the clip. My daughter came out and offered me some snow cones that she mixed up with her new device, and she used this lavender syrup that really was delightful. I went ahead and I tried it, a spoonful. It was the best snow cone I'd ever had in my life. It was light and fluffy, not the kind of the sandy, grainy snow cone stuff. And but it just didn't really appeal to me to dig in and have more. So I even read the ingredients on the lavender syrup bottle, and it seemed like actually decent ingredients. There was no high fructose corn syrup. It was made with cane sugar. But it just doesn't appeal to me, so I'm going to pass. Back to the principle that I use of the self-talk I use from Jen Stevens' books. I can delay, I don't have to deny. And so today, even when I'm thinking about the desserts that are sitting in the fridge, I have a maple cheesecake that my daughter brought home for me from last night's dinner out. I'm going to have that as part of my breakfast meal tomorrow. And I may be done after breakfast, which is pretty much what happened today, if I make it to bedtime without eating, which I think I will. I'm enjoying seeing the hummingbirds flitting around here in the backyard. Actually, one is not flitting, it has landed on a plant. I'm going to shut off the camera for a minute and just enjoy looking at that. That was really sweet. That's the first time I've ever seen a hummingbird be still. So I sat and watched it for about a minute, and then I was even able to take a screenshot of it and try to blow it up so I could share it with you. So the hummingbird is on the far right of the image that I'm sharing. Just a teeny tiny little blob in the picture, but anyway, it made me happy. And I love that hummingbird feeder up there, that glass, blue and green, blown glass hummingbird feeder. I think that's gorgeous. So, Jen's books again. Delay, don't deny. So I will delay, but not deny myself. And then she's got Feast Without Fear. And so I can eat whatever food I want, and I don't have to be afraid of eating, I don't have to be afraid of eating carbs. I don't have to be afraid of eating fats. I don't have to be afraid of eating proteins. I don't have to be afraid of eating any food at all, any combo at all. I would be smart to choose healthy foods, healthy combos, and not be abusive on carbs, not be abusive on fats. Fats and carbs are energy sources, and I only need so much energy. And then her next one that came out is my favorite of all, would be her Fast, Feast, Repeat. And that's how I feel like I'm living. I get to fast. I feel good from fasting. I get to feast. I love feasting. And then I get to repeat the process again, going back into another fast until the next day. And I'm very contented in my food life. Her last book is called Cleanish, where she did a lot of research on foods, and it's very educational. So I highly recommend all of Jen's books, and how her book title Cleanish, you're eating mostly clean-ish, you're going to stray. Most people are not 100% purist in their food choices. The way it applies to me is that's how I eat, mostly cleanish. Cheetos don't qualify as clean, but about 3 to 4 times a year I plow through a family-sized bag of Cheetos. It's just what I've done for a long time. Maybe someday I'll grow up and give it away, give that bad habit up. So I'm happy with my 88 glucose right now after the wonderful meal I had at that restaurant with my daughter. And I think it turned out so well because I began with those 3 protein crepes. And I don't think I described what I did to them. In my image that I shared on the video of the 3 protein crepes, I wrote what I did with them, but maybe that's not easy to see on the video. So I had these 3 egg white gelatin crepes that I had made up, and they keep really well in the fridge. Okay, I pulled them out of the fridge this morning and I put them in the microwave for about 30 seconds, and that warmed them up and they got nice and pliable again. And then I stacked the 3 of them together, and each one on the stack I sprinkled over allulose, cinnamon, and nutmeg. And then I rolled one of the crepes up and I put that on the paper towel. And then I did the next crepe down in the stack and the next crepe down in the stack until I had these 3 crepes rolled up on a paper towel so I could take it with me if I needed to take it in the car. And then over the top of that, I also sprinkled, I had the 3 of them laying side by side. I also sprinkled more allulose, more cinnamon, more nutmeg. And then I just enjoyed eating those. So that's how I started my food, broke my fast with that. And then we were at the restaurant and we went ahead and ordered, and I ate this huge meal from the restaurant. And I haven't had anything since, and I'm happy that my glucose right now is at 88. At what time is it again? I said now it's 6:30 because I've been in and out of the house a couple times since starting this clip in this little section in the backyard. I just realized I haven't recorded any numbers on the data-driven fasting app. I've only taken them on my Dario and have them that way. So this is probably a good time to teach you how, if your life is busy and you just going, your meter will store your numbers as you record them, and then at the end of the day you could go ahead and enter them into your app. So I will turn around the camera and show you that process of my entering a couple of numbers from today, and we'll see what happens on the what the app will say about those numbers. Starting from my home screen on my phone, I'm going to touch the data-driven fasting app and open it up, and I'm going to get ready to track my morning waking glucose that I didn't do this morning on time on the 28th, so I don't have to change the date. Today's the 28th, but I am going to change the time. I'm going to touch the little clock, and just for convenience sake, I'm going to change it from PM to just AM and say that I took it at 6:47 AM. And then I can go off here. Let's see. Okay, so the value is 90. And will you eat? Whoops, I need to touch waking. Okay, so now it's not asking me if will you eat. But my waking was pretty much my eating too. Well, that was the last number I took before I eat. So I'm just going to change it to before meal. I'm going to say that was my number before I ate. And I was not hungry. So that's what I'm going to put in the app for recording for me. And I'm going to hit record. It's telling me that my blood glucose is above my personal trigger. If I'm really hungry and my glucose stays elevated, that I should make sure to have one less meal than normal today. And for me, that doesn't really apply because I am a 1 meal a day person. So I'm going to close that. But I've said before, I think it's ideal if you could eat 2 or 3 meals. I just like to do 1 meal. Okay, so I've recorded that, And I haven't had any other pre-meal numbers today because I only ate that one time. So if I wanted to let it go at that, I could. But I'm going to track my weight because that's important to me here in this process. So I'm going to select a biometric of weight, and I'm going to put in my weight. I'll change the time of day too on that to AM, as if it happened this morning, and touch here to go off. Oh, come on, scroll somewhere else. Touch here. Okay, pounds. I want to do the actual, come on, back. I did the time. Oh, do I have to? No, I don't have to go anywhere else with it. But I'm not recording a weight. Let's see what happens when I hit record, because I can't seem to move the screen so I can enter in the actual weight. I'm going to hit record and see what it tells me. Fill out this field. Well, I can't get to that field. That's a problem. This is a programming problem. How do I close this? Oh, well, I guess I touched something just right. Let's do value. My weight was 100, whoops, back up, 139.2, and record. Okay, so that's showing today's date, today's weight. There was yesterday's weight, 139.8. I also had a waking glucose yesterday of 90. But I guess I didn't remark about it. Oh, maybe because I was still kind of dealing with a cold and thought maybe that's why it was elevated. All right, I'm going to go to my home screen and look at that. Well, looky there. My personal trigger has been adjusted from 83 down to 82. So now I have a new trigger to fast until. Also, on the app, I have a message that I can read, a daily lesson. How can I plan ahead with data-driven fasting? Read more. Okay, I'm gonna sit down and read that. It's actually a very short lesson. It says, in the first few days of the data-driven fasting challenge, you will use your blood glucose to delay meals and decide when to eat. Later, you will learn to lock in your main meal with discretionary meals based on your blood glucose. It's not explaining main meals versus discretionary meals, but that is something that does get explained as the 30 days progress. Let's see the next paragraph. If your blood glucose is consistently above your trigger today, then it will be a safe bet that you should plan for one less meal tomorrow. Before long, you should fall into a new routine that you can follow most of the time, regardless of your testing. You can use your testing to ensure that what you are doing is working for you and decide if you need to refine it further. I'm not finding that lesson particularly helpful if I were coming at this from a newbie. So let me explain in my own terms what I think is trying to be taught here. And forgive me, Marty and Alex, if I screw up your intent with this lesson. So Marty intends that people don't have to be chained to their glucose meter for the rest of their life. I don't happen to mind using my glucose meter. It actually helps keep me honest. So I have used it consistently for the last 3.5, it'll be 4 years in December. But he's saying you can use your glucose meter for these challenges, and in the process you learn to equate your actual hunger or your feelings when you're starting to get hungry with your glucose number, and you can start being able to tune in better to your body, and your glucose will tell you whether you overate, from your last meal based upon your glucose numbers in the morning and your post-meal glucose numbers if you take them. So he's hoping that people, by using the glucose meter, will begin to tune into their bodies more. And I have, but I still like very much seeing the numbers and not just guessing. And about the main meal versus discretionary meals, a main meal would be the meal that you're going to eat no matter what. You're going to have at least one meal that is non-negotiable for the day, whether you like to eat with your family in the evening or whether you're going to eat your big meal in the middle of the day. So then what you would do is, it really doesn't matter what your blood sugar is with that meal. You would eat that meal regardless of what your blood sugar is, but you would use your discretionary meal. Say you wanted to have that second meal a day, either breakfast, lunch, or dinner, depending on what you're shifting around your main meal. You would definitely take your glucose number to see if you've reached your if you're down low near your trigger, and if you're not, that discretionary meal is discretionary. You wouldn't have it, and then you would start making better food choices with your main meal, realizing that if you backed off on fats, or if you backed off on carbs, or if you backed off on both but stayed strong on protein and leafy greens and non-starchy veggies, that your glucose will begin to come down, and then maybe you would be able to have those other discretionary meals that you wanted to have, either breakfast, lunch, or dinner, that is planned around that main meal. A lot of people end up having their main meal be their evening meal because of family. They want to sit down and have a meal with their family. I really like to have my main meal midday, and so and my husband has started wanting his big meal to be more in midday, but he's at work 5 days a week, so it can be that on weekdays we're eating apart. If I were home in Texas right now, I would be packing big meals for him to take to work in his big lunch box, and he would eat that whenever he got hungry in the day. And then when he came home at night, if he felt like snacking, he could do that, but he is not then going to bed on a heavy loaded down stomach, and he's trying that technique of pushing his big meal more towards the middle portion of the day. So but socially, if we were gonna on the weekend have a meal with our kids, then we'd both probably have our main meal be that meal. Oh, a bird just flew in here and flew out. We'd probably have our main meal be that meal with them, no matter what time of day it is, late at night, whatever. When we visit his father and stepmother in Austin, they're late night eaters. We often don't sit down until 7, 8 o'clock at night, and then we have this huge meal. So, but that's what we do when we're with them, and I think that that's the right thing to do. When you're with somebody, you try to live the way they live, since it's a when you're a guest in somebody's house, since it's a temporary situation. I feel like I'm being discombobulated, so I'm going to stop now. I've shared a lot of little things, but I don't feel like it's been very cohesive. I'm going to stop, and then I'll come back before this, I call it a day, and probably take another glucose reading and report whether I decided to go ahead and eat something or not, and then say that's the end of today's video. So there, I'm cutting myself off right now. It's 9 o'clock at night, and I came out just to take a glucose reading, let you know what that bedtime glucose of mine is, and then I'm calling it a day, going into my grandgirl's bedroom and enjoying some bedtime reading before I fall asleep. Starting this process all over again tomorrow. But I love when I walk out here at night and I see those morning glories. The closed up. And then when I come out in the morning and the light is bright, they're open. It's a wonderful thing. I don't know, it just pleases me to see that opening and closing process night and day. Okay, I'm not turning the camera around. I'm just gonna go ahead and take my glucose number and let you know what it is. Okay, it's 86, and now I'll call it a night, and I'll wait and see what the morning brings for a glucose reading. This is the end of day 14 of my personal 30-day health challenge. Thank you for joining me.